Hey everyone. All right, just getting started here. Cool, so I think everyone can see my screen. Thanks everyone for joining on the webinar this morning. My name is Jen. I sit on the community team here at HackerOne. I help to grow and serve our community of hackers. Today we'll be hearing from our top hackers here in North America. We'll be hearing about their journeys, techniques, all about bug bounties and hacker-powered security. Today's session will be led by our head of education, Ben Sadeghipour, otherwise known as Nahamsek on all of the social channels. If you have any questions during the panel, feel free to include them on the questions tab on the GoToWebinar platform directly. But for now, we'll turn it over to Ben.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. As Jen mentioned, I'm Ben Sadeghipour. Most people know me as Nahamsek online. I also have three other panelists with me. Before we do get started, I'm going to say thank you everybody for joining us and let everybody introduce themselves really quickly. For introduction, let's just say who you are, where you're from, and how long you've been hacking for. Let's start with you, Corbin.
So I'm Corbin. My HackerOne username is CDL, and that's just like my hacker alias. I'm from a suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I got started hacking in high school, and I've been hacking for about 5 years now.
Very cool. What about you, John?
Yeah, I'm originally from Atlanta, but I live now in Las Vegas. My hacker name is Mayonnaise or My Own Eyes, depending on which way you read it. I've been hacking for about 2 years and love every second of it.
Very cool. Jesse, what about you?
Yeah, so my hacker handle is Random Deduction. I'm from the Midwest, Indiana, and I've been hacking for over 10 years now.
So you guys are pretty much vets in the hacking space, a few years coming from some hacking, but let's talk about how did you guys discover hacking? How did you hear about it? And what got you, hooked on hacking? Just to start off with you.
Yeah, so my interest kind of really peaked in college when I was doing my undergrad. I started looking at digital forensics, really got into that, started diving deep, and then that led into looking at mobile attack vectors. And I kind of took it from there and then just built a career out of it.
Very cool. John, how about you?
Yeah, I discovered the Hack for Good movement on a couple of radio shows and documentaries. I'm more of a business entrepreneur type of person, and I was going to go through a pause with a business that was starting up. Looking for some freelance work, and I kind of fell into hacking. Didn't realize how well data analytics and just the background in technology applied to this application, and yeah, that's how I got into it. Started off quickly and haven't turned back since.
Very cool. What about you, Corbin?
Nice. So I got into hacking when I was a freshman in high school. I didn't even know hacking was a thing, or that like there's even like a field of hacking. Yeah, we were given laptops when we were like freshmen in high school, and there was like an admin account and a student account, and the student account had all these like applications installed on it for like web filtering. You couldn't install anything, and obviously like I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go on like video game websites and watch YouTube like all day long. And so I figured out that you could just like reboot the computer into like single user mode and delete a file, and then it would set up the computer as like it was brand new. So I did it, and I did it to all my friends' computers, and then we could like delete all the filtering applications, just do whatever we wanted with them. And then I got in trouble with the school once I figured it out. I got in trouble for hacking. I had no idea what hacking even was. So then I got in trouble for that, and I was like, whoa, like what even is hacking? And then I started like Googling about it, and I was really interested about it, so I just started teaching myself. Then it was around my junior year I heard about that people actually like could get paid for it and do it legally. So I like heard about HackerOne, and so then I signed up, and yeah, that's how I heard about the Hack for Good movement and started hacking.
So is that how you got into bug bounties? Was it the junior year in high school where you got in trouble and you found out people were getting paid?
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, I heard about hacking and started learning when I was a freshman in high school, but I didn't know people could even do it like legally, or that it was even a career field until I was a junior in high school. Because like, I don't know, I just thought people would just like did it for fun or just for the thrill of it. And I was like, whoa, there's actually like a whole career field people make out of this. Like you can get degrees in this. So yeah.
Jesse, how did you find out about bug bounties? You said you got into hacking through your undergrad, and then where did bug bounties come into play? Where did you find out and hear about them?
Yeah, so I really got my start with bounties whenever I was working for Salesforce over on their product security team. I was helping run that program there and got to see, incoming reports and meet some of the hackers out there in the community. And that's kind of where I got started. And then I flipped over and, started hacking myself.
Cool. And John, you just started in bug bounties, 2 years ago, I want to say maybe, 2.5 years ago. Yeah. How did you hear about bug bounties and what got you hooked?
Yeah, I mean, it really was. I was in the car one day, and I think I was listening to NPR, and there was something that was on the radio that was talking about it. And I had recently been watching a couple documentaries that were on television that, kind of describe this whole movement where people were getting paid to hack for corporations and hack for good. And I was at a point where I was looking for something that was going to be short term that I could just kind of plug and play and then do for temporary basis. And then, it's what expected to be a 3 to 4 month has turned into 2 years pretty quickly. So, but yeah, it's been an eye opener to say the least. And I guess I enjoy being part of it for sure.
Sounds like you're stuck now, dude. You're not going anywhere.
There's no getting out.
Yeah. I saw it too the other day. It's like hacking is like a drug. You're always like chasing that rush of like getting this buzz that you've been chasing for days.
Yeah,
it's the dopamine for sure. You find something big, and it's a real feeling of euphoria for sure.
Yeah, it's a drug, man. I definitely get it. So let's, now that we're talking about bug bounties, I'm curious to know what makes, a program exciting or attractive to you. Is it a specific scope? Is it a specific, industry? Is it because, you know the company and you want to hack them? What gets you interested in these companies that you go after and spend tons of time? How do you prioritize them? What makes that happen? Let's start with you, John.
Oh, I'm so what priorities? So my background was in digital marketing. I ran some analytics teams, and we did quite a bit of that. And then also I've sort of read some books, and one of the books specifically said, if you're new to hacking, Yahoo is a great target to go for. So put those two together. I started on the Verizon platform, and have gone at it. And I can't be any more pleased with the team that they have in place that helps out. They're always, the company has always been a top sponsor of HackerOne. Even top management is involved, come and speak to the researchers. So, it's hard to say there's a better program that's out there. And I was fortunate that's where I started, and that's where I spent the vast majority of my time.
What about you, Corbin? How do you pick your targets? Is it the scope? What makes you excited when about these programs? How do you select them?
That's a good question. So yeah, kind of like what John said, like it's Verizon Media is really hard because like that's just one of the programs that's just most attractive to me. And I think the reason for that is because they pay really well and competitively against other companies, but they also have a really big scope. So they have a bit of everything. They have really some core web apps that you can really dive deep on. And they also have opportunities where you can just do reconnaissance and find some really weird things that are online or down a path. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. So usually when I'm looking at programs and considering hacking on them, I look at obviously the bounty table, because for me it's I want the thing that's the best for my return on investment, whatnot. Because I'm a student as well, so I have to spend time doing classes and everything else. So for me, it's looking at bounty tables and also considering the scope and how saturated it is. So if the scope is a lot smaller, and if it's one main web application and I can tell that the program's super saturated, there's a ton of reports, lots of hackers have already hacked on it, I might spend more time on something that's either newer, has a bigger scope, that might be just as saturated, just because there's a little it just feels like there might be more issues to find, for me at least. So that's usually how I choose what programs. And it's also not necessarily which industry, but I do also tend to pick programs that I'm familiar with, like the companies. So knowing like what the company is might make me more interested because I've heard of it or I'm a customer of them as well.
Very cool. What about you, Jesse? What makes you excited about a program, or what kind of scopes are interesting to you?
Yeah, so much like Corbin, I like programs that have really large scope, right? I want everybody to just throw everything out there and say, go hack me. When there aren't programs like that, though, I try to like dial it back and hack against products that I actually use day to day in my life, right? Because it's my data at risk there, and that kind of gives me incentive to help protect those different products. But yeah, I like huge scopes where you can just wildcard everything and go find fun stuff.
Yeah, I kind of heard you guys all say Verizon Media at some point, or kind of hinted to it, right? So when it comes down to these programs outside of their scopes, what keeps you loyal to them? What makes you want to go back? And for example, Verizon Media, all three of you mentioned kind of why are you loyal to them? What has, outside of the scope, what's made you guys want to keep going back to them? Let's start off with you, Jesse.
Yeah, so communication is key, right? Changing scope, always communicating with us hackers. It keeps us engaged. Nobody wants to hack on the same thing for 3 years. Like it gets boring quick. So having new products, new acquisitions, all of that makes it fun and engaging.
John, how about you?
I think Jesse nailed it. Communication is key, and accessibility to the team on the inside. So if there's ever a question or concern, or maybe you have a different viewpoint, being able to express that and have dialogue with people within the organization and talk through, I think that's invaluable.
Yeah, they pretty much covered it. I was gonna say just like communication, transparency, and just like being able to like reach out and ask questions is really huge for me. Just because like if you have a little question pop up or you want to ask something about an asset, like should this be online or not? Or is this even a bug? Like it's really nice to be able to just reach out to someone and hear back relatively quick rather than just kind of gamble and just, I don't know, report it or have to reach out to a program manager instead to try to reach the company.
Okay, and then you guys, there's all these programs out, that we have tons and tons of programs that are wide scope. And I'm sure you guys aren't able to pretty much hack on every single one of them, but do you limit yourself to one or two programs, or do you focus on one program at once? Do you always go back to the same program? How does that look? Are you guys hacking on multiple targets at once? Let's start off with you, John.
Yes, so I would say that I spend 95 to 97% of my time on Verizon. But what I am currently doing is I'm working on some automation that takes what I do and can be applied to large other programs. But I'm trying to, because I'm so familiar with Verizon, it's easy for me to develop the techniques, the data analytics, the analysis, and be able to determine what's working, what's not working. So that's why I continue to focus. But my goal is to have some type of methodology and system in place that I can then roll out and easily plug into larger programs as well. But that's still yet to come. So, but yeah, right now, 95% of my time is on Verizon.
What about you, Corbin?
Yeah, so I do have those, like a program or two that I spend a lot of time on and I stick with them and I always come back to them. But I also do jump around a lot between programs. Sometimes I was like, oh, I'm just sick of looking at this. There's been times where I like open a BERT project and I was like, oh, I'm gonna hack on these guys, and it's like 30 minutes later, I was like, no, I'm gonna switch to a different program. I'm sick of looking at this. So I do jump around a lot, but there's also times where it's like, okay, I'm ready to come back to this one of my core programs and just spend another like month or whatnot, mainly just hacking on them. But yeah, I'm not really, I guess I wouldn't say like I'm tied down to like one specific program, because I do like the variety of technologies and different applications that all these different programs provide.
Very cool. What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, so I jump around all over the place, and I'm sure that most of the time it hurts me more than helps me, but I get bored easy. So I jump around, switch it up. If I get a new invite, I jump on that and check it out. Just stay active. And one thing that I like to do is kind of find a methodology or maybe a vuln type and then just go check it across a bunch of different programs, right? Rather than going super deep on just one program.
Speaking of vuln types, do you guys look for every vuln type, or do you prioritize what kind of vuln types you look for when you go after a program? How does that look for you guys?
I'll just start. So it kind of depends on the program. There's some programs, like depending on what industry they're in, their threat model might be a little bit different. So like their business, like for instance, like health, for instance, stuff that would be really a lot more impactful there is any vulnerabilities that would let you get someone else's personal information or like health information. That's like a really bad vulnerability, and that might be more of like an access control issue or logic issue and whatnot. So it really is kind of tailored to each program. But when it's like the wider programs, I kind of, I guess not look for everything, but I tend to stay to like the high, like the medium to like critical, obviously. Severity vulnerabilities. I don't really like look for lower stuff just because it's not worth my time.
Okay, so you do a little bit of a threat modeling on your own, and then based on that, your idea of that threat model, you prioritize vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
That might be okay. Fair enough. What about you, John? All right, let's switch to Jesse. I think John's having a little bit of delay. What about you, Jesse?
So I kind of like to go deep on specific like vuln types sometimes. So I'll, pick something and then I'll figure out really how it works and what it looks like to be fully exploited, and then try to automate that somehow, and then go spray that across a bunch of programs.
Okay. John, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I've got a little bit of lag in my line. I typically try to zero in on the APIs and then that functionality that exists. So I try to find areas that would release endpoints and give me a kind of a roadmap of how to attack an application. And so that's what I look for quite a bit. And then I look for any type of applications that have a lot of heavy interaction with the user, because I find those are opportunities to break in and break some of the communications that go back and forth between the user and the server.
Got it. And how do you guys know when it's enough? I know, Jesse and Corbin, you guys kind of said, sometimes I get bored of the program, or Jesse, you mentioned I jump around because I get bored easily. When do you know it's time to move on? When do you know you've hacked on this particular server or particular website or asset or whatever enough for you to move on? Is it a time limit? Is it just based on whenever you get tired of it? How does that look?
Yeah, for me.
Oh, Jesse, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, for me, it's usually like 3 a.m. and I'm burnt out and ready to go to bed. Just call it quits. It's when I hit that dead end. As I'm working through like a specific target, I kind of take some side notes, like, hey, here's things that I should go back and look at and revisit. And when I kind of come to the end of that list and I'm, not finding anything else that looks worth like spending some time on, I just walk away from it.
Very cool. Corbin, how about you?
Yeah, for me, it's just when I just feel bored of it, it's just kind of dumb, but it's like I just have this feeling where it's just I'm tired of looking at this. I just need something new, otherwise I'm gonna go crazy. So it's a lot more of just like an emotional decision than necessarily like a logical one, but it's just like I'm sick of looking at this. I've tried everything I had in my mind or had ideas about. I'll come back to it later if I want, and like I'll write it down. I have a lot of notes, so like note what I tried, no it didn't work, and then just move on.
John, when do you feel like giving up?
Oh yeah, definitely whenever I become glossy-eyed and just can't focus and start daydreaming. But to both Jesse's and Corbin's point, it's very important to stay organized and maintain a journal or a log of notes to kind of pick up where you are, because if you're just constantly inundated with new endpoints and new ideas, you'll forget and you'll lose some of those valuable points that you need to go back and check in the future. So staying organized is very key.
Very cool. Let's. I'm gonna ask one more question about bug bounty programs, and then we'll move on to a different topic. But before we move on, what's one thing you guys wish that every company knew before they started a bug bounty program? Let's start off with you, Jesse.
Yeah, so my response to this would be that impact is a two-way street, right? So as a company, if you want impactful reports, right, you want us hackers to really give you good stuff and give you critical reports, you've got to give us good feedback back, right? We've got to have impactful responses instead of just closing out reports. Tell us why it wasn't impactful. Tell us what blockers we hit, because we may be able to actually bypass that and get further, but if we just have a closed report, it's impossible for us to know and try that any further.
Corbin, anything you want to add on?
Yeah, so I was gonna say communication, be communicative, and try to be as transparent as you can get. I know obviously there's like more industries that might have regulations that might not let you share certain things, but just be transparent and communicative in your decisions on reports, whether it be like severity or whatever, how you're handling them. Just make sure you're communicating with your researchers, and yeah, just be transparent about it.
Very cool. John, anything you would like to add on to that?
And also be mindful that as a researcher coming in to a new target, we have no background, right, on exactly some of the internal workings. And so sometimes things that may be very obvious to the triage team or obvious to the program, vulnerability disclosure program members, take it with a grain of salt if we come up with something that's a little off the wall, because sometimes we just don't have visibility in what's going on behind the scenes. It's a black box to us, and we're trying to all figure it out.
Very cool. Let's talk about just hacking in general. We talked a little bit, with bug bounty programs, how you guys pick the targets, and how you hack on them, why these particular targets, and so on. Now, I'm curious to understand about how you guys into this, how you guys into space, and how you got better at hacking and keeping up with the trends. Also, more importantly, mentors. Is there anybody? What are any key mentors when you were learning how to hack, and what should others look into when it comes down to finding the right mentor? Let's start off with you, John.
Yeah, so I have not really been engaged one-on-one with many people within the industry. However, I have consumed so much information from the internet, from blog posts, from videos, from streams. I will highly recommend a stream that's on Twitch. It's by Nahamasek. He's on the screen right there. His video series is incredible, and not only they're interviewing people within the industry and they share their tips and techniques, and but he also goes through a lot of the just the different tool sets and what works well and what doesn't. And that kind of engagement, I think, is extremely important for somebody that's beginning in this field, because you can learn, you can accelerate your learning very fast. So thanks, Ben.
Well, thank you for that, John. What about you, Corbin?
Yeah, I can't say that I've actually ever had really a mentor in the space. When I started off, there was some limited resources, so I just read a bunch of blog posts, watched some crappy YouTube videos with like someone using Metasploit and like this really bad techno music in the background. But yeah, now there's just so many resources on getting started and everything. And while I haven't had a specific mentor, a lot of stuff that I've learned now has come from collaboration with a lot of other hackers, because everyone has their own methodology, their own like ideas on how to attack different applications. Everyone has their own kind of niche in a sense, and when you like come together with other people, it's almost like a codependency where everyone like can just like take bits and pieces from everyone else's mind. So I say collaboration is really huge. And I don't really know what specific thing to look for. Is just try to hack with your friends and just try to meet people or ask people to hack with you. I think that's really huge in learning, is just learning by doing with other people.
Yeah, it looks like collaboration. I agree. One of the things that really helped me as a hacker was just collaborating with others, not so much of seeing, what payloads they use or what bugs they find.
Yeah.
It's just their approach and how they look at things that I don't even think about, right?
It's just like, methodology. It's like, oh, I'm gonna try this little path traversal payload here. Like, why would you do that there? And like, oh, it's because like, oh, this might be talking to a different server, and it's just like a lot of different things. People might have more experience with certain infrastructure, so they know how stuff might be interpreted like in backend. So just like even getting that, just like to see a little bit through their own eyes, kind of gives you, a bigger picture that you probably would have never thought of.
Yes, the idea of looking over someone else's shoulder, kind of with their permission, obviously, but it helps you see how they approach it. Yeah, I agree. What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, I didn't have like a specific mentor. More, it was just kind of like the community at large, right? Following people on Twitter, reading through other people's reports, just like you guys mentioned, like just work in the community and learning from each other. And I think that feeds into what you guys are saying. Like a mentor doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's more experienced than you or has been doing this a lot longer. It could be anybody, right? Just pick a friend and go sit down and hack together, and you guys are going to learn so much from each other.
Yeah, I think there is a direct mentorship. You find someone who has 10 years on your experience, and you have the indirect mentorship, whether it's you collaborate with them, you watch their content, you read their blog post, you ask them question or whatever that is. And I think it's a combination of both. I definitely agree. All right, let's what about tools? You guys, is there any tools that besides Burp Suite? Because I think like that's by default, every hacker and bug bounty hunter relies on it.
I hope so, at least.
Besides Burp Suite, are there any other tools you guys rely on heavily? Anything you use on a regular basis or on a daily? I know, John, you're a big fan of Amass. I'll let you start off by talking about your love for Amass.
So yeah, obviously, Amass, however it's pronounced, mass-scan, mass-DNS, live target finder URLs. Corbin, I'm using one of your tools that you built, where you go back to the Wayback Machine and Alien Vault and pull in all the URLs. I look for tools that provide me with data that I can then mine. So those are the types of things that I gravitate to. And there's a number of them out there, and I'm constantly looking for the next one. But yeah, anything that provides another piece of information, helps solve the puzzle, I'm definitely interested.
And by Corbin's tool, you mean get all URLs?
Yeah,
Yes.
GAO.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you pronounce this thing, Corbin?
GAO. GAO.
GAO. All right. What about you, Corbin? Besides GAO and Burp Suite, I assume you use those.
I don't use my own tools. No, I'm kidding. No, I use so yeah, Burp Suite, GAO. I use Nmap, Mass-scan. I use Mass-scan heavily. I have some other custom tools. I do TLS scanning. So I do that pretty heavily. I do like AWS and Google Cloud TLS scans like bi-daily at least. That's really useful. Yeah, Mass-scan for looking at network ranges. FF, I use that a ton. Combined with like Secless and some other wordless I've built using BigQuery. Sometimes I use my tool called Secrets that lets you look through companies' builds on Travis CI, so you can look through like secrets on there. But those are the main. Oh, I also use a Golang port of Wapalizer to go over a ton of URLs and just fingerprint everything. I also use Aquatone a lot for screenshotting.
Very cool. What about you, Jesse? What kind of tools do you use?
Yeah, I was going to mention Aquatone. Like I've been using Aquatone for years now. Back in like the original version of it.
Yeah,
I remember
Ruby.
being at 702. Yeah, 702 and talking about Aquatone like 3 years ago. But yeah, that's a great project. And then one thing I like to do is I like to go out and find these tools and then tweak them for what I actually need to do and chain stuff together. I've been working to try to get better at like bash scripting and creating these awesome one-liners, but yeah, just kind of homegrown stuff.
Yeah, I also use Meg a lot by Tom Nom Nom.
Yep.
Meg is a really great tool for when you're like trying to spray and pray across a ton of hosts. It's so useful. But yeah, and then Subfinder by Project Discovery, Nuclei, use occasionally, but yeah, there's just so many tools out there to use.
Yeah, but I think I kind of see a similar pattern. A lot of tools that are built for recon are very common between all bug bounty hunters.
Mhm.
It's either you're using Amass or SubFinder. It's you're
Yeah.
using FUF or dire search, right? Like you're using one or
Mhm.
the other, but they all do the same thing. It's
Yeah.
just what works best for
Mhm.
you, right? In a lot of cases, like Jesse mentioned, you have to rely on those crappy one-liners that loops through the same tool over and over and over again, for example.
Yeah.
Very cool. Is there any hacking resources that you guys recommend? There's a ton of people that have been in professionally doing IT, for example, that want to go from IT to security or IT to bug bounty, for example. Are there any resources that you think are safe and well done that you recommend to other people to use? I'll start off with you, Jesse.
And well, I kind of touched on Hacktivity and then Twitter. That's primarily where I get my information. But I think when it comes down to it, right, if I'm hit a brick wall and I'm like, well, where do I go from here? I need to find a bug. Like the first thing to do is read the documentation, right? That's what NT swears by. So go out, read the documentation, and usually you're gonna find a bug, right? Because stuff that they write in that documentation is super powerful. If you actually go try it, it usually doesn't work, or it doesn't work like it's supposed to. So that's a good first place to start.
RTFM, read the freaking manual. What about you, John?
No, that's why I mentioned I can't say enough about your program, Ben. So I'll plug it one more time. It's a must watch. Obviously, there's based on whenever you get into hacking, there's always going to be something where you're looking up for a specific piece of information or example. There's so much information that you can just you can search for and find it on Google. It's somebody's covered it out there. And then I highly recommend like Pentester Lab and Burp Suite's or Port Swigger's lab, or what, I'm not sure the exact name of it, but I know they've got one as well. So those give you the opportunity to do dry runs before you go out to the real world. So definitely take advantage of those. Those are great resources.
Anything you can think of, Corbin?
Yeah, so the Hacker 101, the Port Swigger Labs, Pentester Lab, but like John said too, is just Google. There's so much out there. Everyone's like covered different things. Even just looking at OWASP top 10 on that project and just looking at different vulnerability types and just trying to understand what it is, how it works, how you can find it. Yeah. Oh, also some good books are the Pete Jaworski's books on real world bug hunting is really great because there's this book with like actual reports and it talks about each vulnerability type. So I'll plug those for him, but those are some really good books. Yep, real world. Yep, that's it. But yeah, that's a really good book.
Watching this and you want to purchase this book, this is what it looks like. Yeah, so just to recap really quickly, books I agree with. There are some, there's some few outdated books that show you the fundamentals, but this is definitely a really good place to get more of the modern approach to bug bounties. Twitter is hands down how I got started. I just went on there and followed every top hacker that I could think of that was publishing write-ups and publishing tips, whatever that is, and just following them was really, really cool. And honestly, like 5 years ago, when back in my day when I first started, there weren't a lot of places. There was DVWA and Metasploitable maybe, and stuff like Hack This Site was around. But nowadays there's Websec Academy by Port Swigger, there's Hacker 101, Pentester Lab, Try Hack Me, and all these different things. So I agree there are a ton of good resources. It's just you have to find the one resource that works with your learning style, whether you're someone that learns on their own or if you're someone that relies on books and somebody teaching you how to do these things, right? Speaking of picking up these skills, if few of you are working full-time, if you are doing it bug bounties full-time, but I want to know, do the skills from bug bounties get transferred to a daytime job? Are those skills transferable? Just to start off with you, do you think that the stuff that you're learning in bug bounties are helping you with your day-to-day job that you have outside of bug hunting, or is it just for a hobby that you don't use the skills at all?
Yeah, so I'm a CISO at a healthcare company, and actually run our HackerOne program as well. So as a hacker, right, I feel all the frustrations when you put reports in and maybe, you wait forever to get a response or whatever. So I try to take those experiences and make sure that they don't happen in my program, right? So that's how I kind of relay that information over, as well as when I'm out hacking against all these other companies and all these other tech stacks, like all of these bugs that I'm seeing, I can then go back to my company and make sure that we're protected against those same kind of vulnerabilities, right? So it's kind of it's like a full life cycle there. I got to be offense and defense.
What about you, John?
Yeah, anybody that's in the project management or program management space, I think being able to understand the nuances of these bugs definitely would help you be able to provide and be able to produce better products and applications to the business, because you know kind of the things to look for. If somebody on the management team is pro-security minded, they can help identify and prevent some of these issues from ever going live. So I think that helps out. I think also just in general, going through the exercise on a daily basis of trying to solve problems over and over and coming up with creative ways, I think that's a mental exercise that does well for anybody. So there's a lot of things that somebody could take away from this that helps them not only professional but also in their daily life. So.
All right, Corbin, what about you? I know you you've worked behind a few bug bounty programs a few times, and you have also been on both ends of it. How does that look? Is that transferable skill sets?
Yeah, so like I'm a college student now, but I used to work as a triager at HackerOne, and I've worked also at like other organizations as an intern before. But it's definitely transferable. I've even gotten like job offers because of my bug bounty skills from programs who are like interested in hiring people. But it's definitely transferable, and kind of like what John was talking about too, is a lot of bug hunting is just critical thinking and being creative as well, and that's pretty transferable to not even necessarily just hacking, but in general. You do creative thinking and critical thinking all the time, and being able to, I guess, just practice that. And yeah, especially in hacking too, is extremely transferable to full-time work.
Yeah, we're almost at time, and then I kind of want to talk about the future of hacking a little bit, if you guys don't mind. Before we do get started with the topic, I want to hear from each of you. What is one advice you can give to new bug hunters and the new generation of hackers? Anything you wish you knew when you first started? Any mistakes you want to avoid? Any word of wisdom? Let's start off with you, John.
Yeah, so my words of advice is start off with the fundamentals that everybody needs to know, but then identify what makes you unique. What are your personal experiences? What are your talents? And then hone in on that, because if everybody's doing the exact same thing, what's the purpose of having an additional set of eyes if they're looking at the same thing? So really focus in on what makes you unique and different, and I think that'll do well for you as you go out and you hunt for bugs, because you're looking at it with a different viewpoint, and you'll hopefully be able to find some things that have been overlooked by other researchers.
What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing is like, don't get discouraged if you are hacking on a program and you're worried about other people finding those bugs, or the fact that there are hundreds of other people hacking on that same program. It's easy to do, right? And just throw your hands up and quit because you think somebody else is going to find those bugs first. But if you approach every target as like you're the very first person to ever look at it, you'll be surprised by what you find.
Yeah, what about you, Corbin? Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. So a lot of it is just be persistent in it, and have the right, I guess, motivation. Have the right motivations. If it's just about money, you're just going to be burnt out and sick of it, and you're not going to really want it. A lot of like my hacking even just passion. It's just like I enjoy it. I love the chase of it. And I always, every time I've asked this question, I always just come back to like one of Yobert's tweets that said, remember that learning anything is a marathon and not a sprint. Like it takes time, lots of time and persistence, just learn and get good at whatever it might be. So just keep that in mind, and don't get discouraged when it takes you months to find an issue or whatnot. took me 10 months when I started to find my first bounty that was like $100. So yeah, be persistent, have the right motivations, and it's all right to get discouraged, but just keep going with it.
I'm sorry I didn't ask this earlier. Did any of you guys go to a college or university for a computer degree? And if so, did that help with your bug hunting at all? John, I feel like you're amused by this question. To start off with you.
I mean, I did. I went to college, and I had some information technology. I did go to a technical institution, so we were required, no matter what your degree was in, we had to do some coding. So we all learned Java at some point. But you know, my background is definitely not in coding, but just familiar with code and familiar with how people program. I think that was more important.
Jesse, how about you?
Yeah, so I have my master's in computer science, but I don't feel like that's required at all, right? To be a hacker. I feel like if I wanted to be a hacker, I could have been a hacker without that degree. Yeah, maybe that degree helped me in certain ways, like learn how to write code or whatnot, but you don't necessarily need to go to a university to get that same exposure.
Coben, what about you? You mentioned you are a student already, so
Yeah.
how does that look for you? Right?
So yeah, I mean, like I started hacking when I was a freshman in high school, so that's not really like didn't even have any college experience yet. I went to a community college for a semester and I dropped out and started working at HackerOne for a while. I decided to come back just for the experience, and right now I'm majoring in computer science. And like obviously like I could quit right now and I wouldn't need a degree to get a job. But I definitely think that my major has helped me, I guess, hack in a sense, has contributed to it just through different like, even though it's not specifically hacking related, just like algorithms and whatnot, data structures have helped me improve some of my tooling and stuff. So I can say like, yes, it's been beneficial, but definitely not required to do this.
Yeah, I think a computer science degree helps you understand the fundamentals of computers.
Yeah.
Like it helps you learn the programming languages and to understand how some of these apps may have been written. You can kind of guess, okay, he's doing this thing in the back end because I learned this other thing that's unrelated. It's kind of similar, right? But I don't think that just Jesse mentioned, you don't really need a computer science degree. You can learn a lot of these things on your own. Yeah, I agree. It's not a requirement, but it's definitely nice to have when it comes to bug bounties.
Yeah, I mean, like that's like with anything too, though. It's like you can do a lot of learning on your own. The reason like I'm going for school is like I probably wouldn't learn the things I'm learning now on my own just because I probably don't care enough, or I get too distracted or whatnot. But it's been good. But yeah, it's definitely not required. And it's whatever your learning style is, just like go for it. For instance, a lot of people learn a lot better on their own at accelerated paces. Some people need a slower pace. Some people need someone to kick their butt and like tell them to like go learn this. So yeah, whatever suits you.
Yeah, I agree. So we are almost out of time. I do want to open up for some questions, if you guys don't mind. We'll take a few questions. I have a few already queued up. If you don't mind, I'm just gonna throw them out there. This is one of my favorite questions. How do you stay focused and not getting distracted while doing bug bounties? Corbin.
How do I stay focused and not get distracted when doing bug bounties? Gosh, I don't. There's sometimes I get very distracted and just like there's stuff going on. My dog comes and bothers me all the time. Someone's calling me and whatnot. So, I mean, you kind of do the best that you can. Sometimes where that's just like putting headphones on and devoting, okay. Or like I'll try this like, I don't even know what it's like, Pomodoro method where you do like 25 minutes of work, take a 5-minute break or whatnot. It's like, okay, I'm going to set a timer. I'm just going to try to hack for this amount of time, then I'll take a break. So, I mean, I try to stay focused, throw my headphones on, and like sometimes I just get sucked in. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 3 a.m. and I just looked at my clock last, it was like 10. So like obviously that kind of just happens where you just get zoned in, but sometimes you kind of have to force it and just like set a timer and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm always like super focused, but that doesn't mean I don't do bug bounty at the same time. I don't know.
What about you, John? How do you stay focused?
No, I definitely, I am a big proponent of creating an environment to be successful in. So I try to block out all outside communications. And so that's part of the reason why I'm not on social media. It's that you can't control the flow of information. So I'm not on social media at all. Yeah, I call it the hacker hole. I tell my wife I'm going in, and and then it's 10 hours later I emerge. But to me, I've got to be completely focused. If I lose track or train of thought, I can lose an hour or two of work. So I just trying to make sure that people that are around me and that know that that's the case, and they let me be. And then obviously I'm turning off anything that gives me notification of an email or a message or anything of that nature. So.
What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, so it's definitely difficult, right? Especially if you've got a full-time job as well. But that balancing act is really important, and changing up the scenery is nice, right? I'll go to a coffee shop or go somewhere, even if it just like get in my car and go drive somewhere random and sit in my car and hack. Like it just to change things up. It keeps me kind of centered and keeps me focused, and I don't get as burnt out that way.
Yeah, I want to kind of also ask you, there's a question about lifestyle. I'll read it off, but I'm going to reword it afterwards. The question is, how does the lifestyle of a hacker differ from that of a normal person? I feel like we all have different lifestyles, but what I want to ask, I think the better way to ask this is, do you guys have like a routine of a daily? Do you work 8 to 5 for your bug bounty hunting? Do you do it whenever you feel like it? Do you have dedicated days? Schedule? How does that look for someone who's doing this bug bounty thing? Let's start off with you, Corbin.
I don't really have certain days. Like I guess there's times I'll be like, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna try to spend all day like hacking and whatnot. But yeah, I guess my routine's pretty normal. I like wake up, have coffee, I'll like go for a run and lift. But that's I don't know. It's not really that much different. Besides, maybe I'll spend more time on my computer. But I guess I'm not as organized because like I'm a student, I guess, and I don't have a full-time job. So it's kind of like when I feel like it. And like I enjoy hacking, and I see it as a hobby, but also as kind of a job. But I don't really like forcing myself to do it if I don't want to do it, and I just don't want to get burnt out really. So a lot of it is just kind of, I don't know, whenever I'm feeling like it and whatnot.
What about you, John?
Set aside time.
Yeah, so I'm doing it pretty much full time now. I'm much more productive if I establish a routine. However, maintaining a routine requires discipline, and sometimes I don't have that. For me, if I stick to a routine, generally, okay, these are the hours that I'll be hacking, and stick with it and treat it like a regular job, then I'm much more productive. But I love the fact that I've got freedom in saying, okay, you know what, I'm getting tired. I'm going to take 3 days off, and I'm going to do whatever, and I don't want to think about anything but having a good time. So.
Yeah. What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, so I kind of feel like I'm always on, right? Whether I'm hacking against somebody or I'm fielding reports that come in through my program. So one thing I've had to do is really train myself. If I'm working at 8 o'clock at night, that's okay, because the next day, if I have a break in meetings from 2 to 3, right, I can just go and take that time off, even though it's like in the middle of a work day and that's kind of unconventional. It's okay to do that, right? Step away and get outside and take the time that you have and enjoy it.
Yeah, I think the other side of this question is like the taking a break. John, you mentioned you take a few days off. I think it's also like, you as hackers, do you have particular hobbies outside of hacking? And also, what do you do to completely disconnect from the computer? Because, from a regular job, if you're doing construction, you don't have to do that all day, right? When you're at a computer, you look at the screen for so long that you completely forgot. Corbin, you mentioned it's 10 p.m. at some point, and then you look up, it's like dark, 3 a.m. Sometimes, the sun's just coming out, right? And you lost track of time. But how do you take a break? it's a hard balance because you're always on your computer, you're always at home on your computer. Do you force yourself to take a Friday off every week? Do you hack or do your job for a month or two and then take a long break? Do you have a hobby every night? Like I play video games after work. I do my thing at work 9 to 5. After 5, I'm playing a little bit of Call of Duty. Then I go into hacking. How does that look like for you guys?
So
Yourself,
I
Corbin.
can't. Okay. So that's a difficult one because I still feel like I need to keep working on that. There's a lot of times where it's like, okay, I'm just feeling really burnt out, and I'll just come back when I feel like I'm ready. And that's like, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I'm just gonna hang out. Like I'll go outside, play basketball. Yeah, I work out. Like so that's really good mentally. But yeah, it is definitely kind of hard to do because sometimes you like we were just talking about, it's like you get sucked in and like you really need those breaks, but I usually don't force them. A lot of it is like I'll just like I keep saying like this, but like this is my hobby, and like obviously yeah, I love like this is gonna be my career is just something in hacking, but yeah, it's really hard.
But what are some hobbies? I'm trying to get out of you. What do you do
Like
for
what?
fun, man?
Yeah, I play video games, I play sports, I
So
run,
you run and
lift.
you lift, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I go shooting with my friends sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. What about you, John?
No, I like to completely get out and away from everything. So I enjoy golf. So that's a good guaranteed 4 to 5 hours of being completely unplugged. Of course, I play it. They don't even allow cell phones, so it's a great excuse to say I'm completely off the grid. And a long walk outside, whether it's with friends or by yourself. Sometimes the times by yourself, it's great to get out there and just let your mind wander. And believe it or not, there's been times where you kind of have that aha moment while you're on the 5th hole. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get back and try this out. But
golfing is also a great way to destroy your
oh
your
yeah,
mind
no,
sometimes. You just
yeah,
get
you're not
so
gonna
frustrated.
course record is
Oh
completely
man.
safe.
What about you, Jesse? Do you golf as well, or
Yeah, I
anything
do
else?
golf actually. Yeah, and I've been golfing more frequently. So yeah, I think that definitely helps because it is a defined set of time that you are away from the computer. But I also like to camp, right? So I try to make myself at least a couple times a year go take a camping trip, and whether that's the middle of nowhere or what, but be device free, like just for an entire weekend, no phones, no computers, as a reset.
Very cool. One more last question. I know we're at time. I'll ask this last one, and then we'll pretty much wrap this up. Are you guys hacking more, or are you hacking less because of the pandemic and the stay-at-home shelter and all the quarantining that's happening? Are you guys doing more of that? Are you still doing the same amount of hacking that you were before it? How does that look? Let's start off with you, John.
Yeah, so I'm definitely. I was working on relaunching a business at the beginning of the year, and due to the COVID stuff, we actually had to turn it, put it back on pause indefinitely. And so I started hacking angry. I was just fully, I'm going at it. And those next few months were extremely rewarding for myself. But now that I've kind of gone through a good 2.5 months of full-on crazy hours hacking, I've kind of dialed it back quite a bit, and kind of recharging my batteries right now and working on tool sets. But definitely, I was in quarantine and I was doing nothing but just hammering away on the targets.
What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, I would say it's either the same or maybe I'm hacking a bit more because of COVID, with the full-time job and everything. It's been a busy couple months.
Very cool. And Corbin, how about you?
I'd say it's probably about the same. I don't know. I just hack in spurts. Hack when I feel like it. There's other times of like video game spurts, whatnot. But I'd say it's probably been about the same. Sometimes it gets hard when it's like, oh, the same repetitive thing over and over and over and over again. Like I just need little breaks. But so I feel like kind of the last month I've been like recharging a bit. But now it's definitely like with this live event that's going on right now, at least is more of like, okay, I'm like ramping up into it, and I've looked at other like companies too. So yeah, it's been probably about the same.
Very cool. Well, hey, before you guys go, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your time and answering our questions. And thank you everybody for joining us and watching this stream. Before we wrap it up, anything you guys want to add or any comments, anything you want to add on before we wrap it up?
Have fun. This is it's exciting stuff, and it's real easy to get addicted to it. So wish you the best.
Well, good luck, have fun, and happy hacking. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.